Today we're going to be looking at several different pruning examples on shrubs where we are keeping them in check with pruning by shearing. On average, this means removal of about 6 to 24 inches of growth depending on the shrub variety. And once a shrub reaches that size you like, it's pretty easy to keep them in check with just one annual shearing. This may not be the case when plants have been planted too close together or too close to buildings or other objects. The best advice then is to always give your plants the room they need for normal growth as they reach their mature size. It'll just make the project so much easier year to year. One of the benefits of performing this annual pruning by shearing is that it'll stimulate new growth. And that new growth can often yield more vibrant leaf colors as well as more abundant and showy flowers. Our first shrub here is gold mound spirea. The gold mounds get around 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and my favorite time to do this shearing each year is late winter into early spring. It's a quick process and it really sets the plant up nicely to flush out that new bright golden yellow leaf color and bright pink flowers on that new wood. About every 5 to 7 years, you may have to go lower and do a rejuvenation or renewal pruning to clear out a buildup of dead stems. I'm not going to be talking about rejuvenation in this video, but I'll link to a video in the description where I've covered dozens of examples of that type of rejuvenation or renewal pruning. You can also shape this plant mid-season if you like a more formal look, but it certainly isn't necessary. And if flowering is important to you, one of the key differences to consider when pruning is whether or not your shrub flowers on what's called new wood or on old wood. That new wood is the same season growth, it'll set flower bud just fine, but certain plants need that old wood or a full season to initiate that flower bud. As far as the spireas go, there are many other smaller ones with different leaf varieties and different flower colors that you can prune the same way. Our next example up is one of the potentillas. They're also called the shrubby cinquefoils. Summer dawn's one of my favorite with that softer yellow flower. Here again, a light shearing in late winter is going to encourage that new fresh leaf growth and a flurry of new flowers. Same as the spirea, this is a quick process if you're doing a light shearing each spring. Depending on the variety that you're growing, potentillas will range in size between 18 inches and all the way up to 4 feet on some of the older ones. And even though the green leaf color is consistent on this shrub, there are many different bloom colors to pick from, with different shades of yellow, orange, pink, even white. Like the spireas, dead growth can eventually start building up in this shrub, and you may also need to do rejuvenation pruning occasionally. And that's one of the greatest things about potentillas, not only those various flower colors, but the long bloom period that you get, starting in early summer and lasting all the way into fall. Let's jump next to an example where we're shearing mid-season on a dwarf Korean lilac tree. Most lilacs are grown as shrubs, but it's also common to see varieties like this grafted as a tree form. And since this lilac blooms on old wood, I'm pruning it directly after it's finished blooming. This will stimulate new growth and allow enough time for the remainder of the season for the plant to set new flower buds on those stems. The dwarf Korean lilac is a great shrub to also use in Japanese-style gardens, where you create interesting forms like you see here. Since flowers are probably not the primary goal here, it's possible this is pruned 2 to 3 times a year to keep that nice tight shape. Let's switch now to a few evergreen examples. Here's a row of Techni arborvitaes that have been planted next to this fence, providing a screen for a swimming pool. Since the Techni is a broad pyramid, this has become a really high maintenance situation, as the Technis can easily get up to 10 feet wide, making it pretty tight for this area that only has about 4 to 5 feet of space. The decision could be made to let these blend together as one continuous head, but for now, the choice has been to keep them separated at this smaller size. My preferred time for shearing like this is early to midsummer, after the spring flush of growth is complete. Keep in mind on the arborvitaes, you cannot rejuvenate them or do renewal pruning, as I've mentioned in the deciduous shrub examples. Here we're going to be limited to removing about 4 to 6 inches of growth before we really would start getting into some stems just completely void of leaves. I have seen examples where people really scalp back arborvitaes, but it can take them years to recover. So if you want to keep an evergreen like this at a certain size, make sure you start doing this annual shearing once it's reached that point. Over the years, I've mostly used the manual shears on projects like this, but now with so many great battery-operated shears, I'm starting to use these more and more. It really does speed up the process, but it's still hard to get to every angle, so I bounce back and forth and use my manual shears when necessary. So from a lower maintenance perspective, choosing an upright arborvitae like the Holmstrop or maybe the De Groots would have been a much better choice in this area. Both of those varieties have a much more narrow form and very possibly would not have needed any pruning for decades. Many of the juniper varieties can also be sheared and easily kept to size, like in this box hedge that you see here, or in other various shapes and sizes. My preferred timing on the juniper is same as the arborvitaes. I like to let them flush out in the spring, and then by midsummer, I'll start shearing back that new growth. Here again, with junipers, you are going to be limited to how much leaf area you can take off before you would get into some stems just completely void of leaves. So once that juniper gets the size you like, make sure you just take care of this chore annually for best results. And if you've got any pines that you'd like to keep smaller or in certain shapes, I recommend waiting until that new candle growth has fully elongated and then shear off about half to 2/3 of the candle. That timing is usually about the same as it is on the junipers or arborvitaes in that early summer time frame. One thing you'll notice when pruning evergreens like the arborvitaes, junipers, pines is how quickly the sap or tar can build up on the blades. It causes a sticking, making it difficult to move the blade back and forth. There are special lubricants available for purchase that you can spray on that'll help avoid this problem. Over the years though, I've mostly just used water to keep the process moving along and keep that sap just a little bit more fluid. As far as evergreens go, then you really wouldn't have to do this type of shearing if you picked the right size plant for your location and have given it the proper space to grow as it matures. Unless, of course, you're trying to keep those unique bonsai shapes, then you're going to need to do that annual shearings. Next up, some pruning taking place in late fall on a couple ivory halo dogwoods. Even though I mostly prefer late winter for the pruning we've been talking about, you can also do pretty much any one of these shrubs in the fall. I just recommend that you make sure you wait until you've had a couple of really hard frosts. That'll help signal the plant going into dormancy. Like the lilac example, dogwoods also bloom on old wood, so due to our timing here, we'll be skipping any flowering on this shrub in the spring. Since this variety is mostly grown for its showy variegated leaves and that red stem color, flowering was not a concern to this homeowner. If flowers were desired, treat this shrub the same as the lilacs and shear directly after they are done blooming. Many of the different hydrangeas also respond well to this late winter pruning, and I think it leads to their best flowering on that new growth. Keep in mind there are some varieties that bloom on both new and old wood, so read up on your specific variety if you're trying to maximize your flower size. This is limelight. I take off about 2 feet late winter every year to keep that size in check and to remove the spent flower heads from last year. I really enjoy the winter interest that hydrangeas provide with that brown dried flower. Those are going to last all winter, even in heavy winds. And if you like cut flowers for indoor arrangements, these can be a great addition for a fall arrangement. Here's one more hydrangea, the quickfire variety. I'm keeping these 3 plants in a small hedge form. Same as the limelight, I do a late winter pruning to remove those old flower heads, cutting off about 12 inches here. Quickfire, they can get at least twice this size if you have the room to let it develop. Quickfire is also one of the better hydrangeas for attracting a wide range of summer pollinators. It's just an incredible shrub with a nice range of transitioning flower colors. Throughout the growing season, they'll start out with this white and then fade into this quickfire pink. And that wraps it up for this video, the examples I've got for you on pruning by shearing. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike, I appreciate it. We'll see you again next video.